Welcome to workshop number 1 in the Akashic Transwork Initiation Series. My name is Nathan, and I'm here with my amazing partner, Stara Soleil. We are the Akashic Transwork team. We're so grateful to all of you for taking the time to invest in this deeply transformative process. This is our purpose work. This is why we exist on this planet, as far as we can tell. So we're so happy that you've come to receive this from us. So hopefully all of you have been through the orientation process, so I won't spend a whole lot of time talking about those things, how the class flows and how the check-ins work. And if you're watching this as a self-paced initiate, then just do your best to follow along. Reach out to us and let us know what kind of questions you might have, how well this recorded process works for you. We're here for you. Email us, Facebook us. You can tweet us if you want to. I'm not on there a whole lot, but I will hear it. So yeah, reach out to us. So before we do anything else, this is our very first lecture. This is our foundational workshop. So what we want to do is focus on the fundamentals. Some of you may feel like you are very accomplished, and I'm sure you are. And I would say that there are many of you who are much more accomplished than either of us in different areas. We all have our special gifts. We all have our special abilities. Stars are different from mine. Whatever we do, whatever our particular trance work skill might be, whatever our spiritual gifts might be, we believe that the most fundamental aspect of safe trance work is grounding and centering. Grounding and centering. Have you grounded today yet, dear ones? It's very important to make sure that we are grounded, that we remember we are these physical beings in physical bodies. You might say that Akashic trance work is a tantric modality, meaning that we celebrate the physical experience. We celebrate our physical lives as much as our spiritual lives. We're not an ascension modality, and we'll talk about that a little bit. There are certain practices that focus on asceticism, removing the physical experience, suppressing the physical experience. We are not about that. We are about the body intelligence, connecting with the body, with the ancestors, with everything that has come before us. So you'll see that more and more as we move forward. We embrace the total experience. So grounding is so critical, so important. So let's all take about 2 minutes to ground together, and I'll do my best to make sure we always do this before every workshop, no matter how all of us are feeling and no matter how time goes. This is the most important thing that we can do. So let's take about 2 minutes to just take some deep breaths. Just breathing deeply into the belly. And as we breathe, if you can, depending on how you're sitting right now, either press your feet down into the ground or just press your sit bone down into your seat, maybe both. Straighten your back. And as you breathe in, visualize that your spine is a cord. And as you breathe in, it pulls taut, connecting you above and below. And hold, release, and the cord relaxes. Let's try this a few times. Just continue to breathe and keep doing that. If it feels natural, if not, it's okay. Just be aware of the breath. Be aware of how it moves in and out of your lungs. You feel so connected to your physical body. So present right now. with all of your senses. So connected with your presence in the room. Just information coming through. Just information from all of your senses, from your skin. Your skin senses so many things. Sometimes we forget about it, but it tells you so much about your physical experience. Through this sense, you can detect the temperature of the air. You can feel the fabric that's closest to your skin. You can feel any areas of discomfort. Just be present with those sensations. As you breathe, and as you continue to breathe, I invite you to send your attention to your heart. Put your hand on your chest if it feels comfortable. Just think of something that you're grateful for, something that makes you feel happy to be alive. I, for one, am grateful for all of you amazing, beautiful people who have chosen to join your energy with us in this moment. Whether you're here with us for the live workshop or you're watching this as a recording, I'm still so grateful for you for engaging us and connecting with us. I'm also grateful for my amazing partner, my twin, Astara Soleil, who looks like Sarah Shizikwe here. That's her other name, her alter ego. But I'm so grateful for her for building all of this with me. All of this is our alchemical work that we've channeled in by connecting with each other. So thank you. Thank you, all of you, from the deepest part of my heart center. Thank you so much. So now that we're nice and grounded, let's kind of shake off any energy that might be kind of lingering with us. I like to kind of shake my hands a little bit, give my neck a few nice stretches, clear my throat, take some deep breaths, take a drink of water if you have it with you. Hopefully you do have some water or some tea or something else. Let's get started. So let's review our agenda for today's workshop. We already talked a bit about self-care and grounding, so we'll review more of that at the end. But again, grounding is such an important part of this process. What I really want to talk about as our central topic is the ARE cycle. So I'll spend a bit of time talking about that. I'll be talking a bit more during this lecture than I will be in future ones because I want to get through some of these concepts and talk about why they're important. And then we'll move into our lessons. I'll talk about our first lesson, reviewing trance states, go through some exercises to access some trance states. It's much easier than you might imagine, honestly. Lesson 2, we'll dive deeper in to those trance states and explore what we can do there. And then for our third lesson, we'll circle back and review safe trance work practices, which again are very important to us. And again, feel free to pop up with any questions if you're present with us. You can also chat there in the chat box. There's no bad questions. All right. So let me tell you about the ARE cycle. Hopefully by now you've read the key concepts document, but if you haven't, I'll do my best to go through this quickly and succinctly. The ARE cycle comes from the concept of Ubuntu. Ubuntu is an African word which means I am because we are. Question? Okay. So, yes, Ubuntu means I am because we are. The way that this came about was because Astara was doing some really amazing transformative spiritual work. And this was, I would say, over 2 years ago now. She was exploring her ancestors. She was connecting with just so many new things to us at that time. And it came to her how relevant this Ubuntu principle is. One night, she woke up, essentially, and had one of these revelations, one of these strikes of lightning, so to speak, that hit her occasionally. And it came to her how critical Ubuntu is to all of us. But we didn't really know exactly how it would apply. It's an awareness, it's a perspective of unity. We are all connected, we are all one body. Why was that relevant? We didn't know, but we knew it was. As time progressed on, as we began to develop our alchemical child entity, then it occurred to us that the best tagline for alchemical child, for who we had become, was I am because we are. It brought in this unity principle. We had a vision vaguely of alchemical child as being something that brought us all together, that connected us. So that was our tagline that we developed. And as we began to develop Akashic trance work, conceptually, something kind of hit us just one day. We were talking. What is the cyclical nature of human consciousness? How does consciousness grow? Well, we know it's an expansive process, but we're not always expanding. Sometimes we're just kind of sitting in one place. Sometimes it feels like we're actually moving a little bit backwards. Sometimes it feels like we're starting all over from scratch. How does this make sense, given that we feel like we have these awakenings and then suddenly everything comes crashing down and we're starting over from the beginning? Well, it is cyclical. How does the cycle work? Well, it seemed to us, based on the work that we had done with our clients and with ourselves, that most people were in one of three phases: an activation phase, a release phase, and an expansion phase. Now, I believe that we actually came up with this ARE, activation, release, expansion, before we realized that the acronym was ARE, and before we realized that it was the end of our tagline, which is the translation of Ubuntu. This is how magic works, honestly, when synchronicities like this occur. Our activation, release, expansion cycle that we had observed matched up with everything else we've been doing. And that's when we knew that we had received divine guidance from our higher selves, that this was the path. So we've come to see activation, release, and expansion as the pattern by which consciousness grows. All of us at any given time are in one of these three phases. We have either been activated, meaning that we've suddenly become aware of something new, some new experience of reality. It's a perspective shift, it's a paradigm shift. It changes our world. It changes who we are and how we see things. Unfortunately, this often happens due to traumatic life circumstances, but not always. Sometimes it can be after a long period of meditation or introspection, or it can even just happen spontaneously. Sometimes this can feel like what is called an awakening. Some people have dramatic awakenings, energetic awakenings that are sometimes called Kundalini awakenings or Shakti. It's a massive energetic burst that happens, and then suddenly everything is changed. Now, what happens after that activation really helps to determine what comes next. Because at that point, we have a choice. Because typically when these activation points happen, we become aware of things within our consciousness, within our psyche, that are holding us back, that are limiting us. These might be traumatic memories, limiting beliefs, any number of things. But ultimately, when we become aware of those things, we have the choice of whether or not we want to release those things, free up some energy, or if we want to suppress our awareness of them. Now, if we do choose to suppress, then we move on to suffering, because anything that we suppress will eventually cause us to suffer. This is what leads to soul fragmentation, suppression of our activation points. We don't talk a lot about soul fragmentation in this course. That's an advanced topic, but understand that if we choose to not release, then we will fragment, we'll compartmentalize, we'll dissociate and disconnect. So as sometimes uncomfortable as release is, it is necessary to be able to go on to expansion, right? We cannot expand until we have the energy to do so. Expansion requires energy. And if all of our energy is being focused on things that don't serve us, things that are holding us back, then we just suffer, right? So we don't want to move on to the ASS cycle. Sometimes we say activation, suppression, and suffering. That's the ASS cycle. Don't suppress, release, free up energy, and expand. Expansion does not have to look like what we make it look like. None of these things do. But we've provided here a model, a general framework for you to experience your own version of the ARE cycle. Your expansion could look like anything. It could look like starting a new career, starting a family, finding a new relationship, starting a business. We model expansion as exploring the Akashic records, connecting with our ancestors, connecting with our light beings, connecting with our star family, healing others, reading for others, becoming aware of our deeper heart centers and our present time awareness, because that's what we like to do. What you do with your expansive energy is up to you. Creativity is one thing that often comes from expansion. Art, music, other kinds of projects. Expansion could be anything. Now, I do want to also sort of put in a disclaimer or a caveat to say that we don't want to assume that you have blockages. Maybe you've already done a lot of shadow work, a lot of deep introspective clearing and healing. Hopefully you have. Hopefully you don't need a lot of release. Quite honestly, people that need a lot of release work tend to get stuck in the third or fourth module because there's just too much. So this course is really designed for people that are ready for it. Now, if you find that you are receiving too much resistance when you get to that release point, check in with us. It's not that you are not ready. It's simply that your resistance is giving you a guide. And it is possible that it's not time yet. So bear in mind, you have access to all these materials, to all the recorded workshops indefinitely, for as long as we have Akashic trance work. So pace yourself. Go slowly, even if you feel like you're already moving ahead. Remember, when we get to the release portion, there will be things that may come up that we need to face together. So be mindful of that and understand that those exercises are optional. All of these exercises are optional. So if going in and looking at your core beliefs, your core narratives, your ego mind, if those things don't feel comfortable to you, don't do them. But I will say The reason that we include release work in a class that is mostly intended to teach you about the Akashic records and things like that is because if you have not done significant release work and you try to go in and access the Akashic records or heal people or do whatever it is that you want to do, then the information that comes through is not going to be as clear as it might like, and you may not even be able to have those experiences. That's what we've noticed time and time again with some of our clients, is that if they are not ready to move on to expansion, they won't. So we're providing you with the tools to go through release. Go through them by yourself, or if you want to work with someone else, we highly advise it. You know, it can be some of the most personal stuff, honestly, but everyone in this course, everyone who is connected to this initiation is a kind, loving, sensitive soul. I will say that's always true because that's the kind of energy that we have intended to connect. Every one of you is a healer, even if you are only here to heal yourself and your ancestors. That is still a great healing that you offer the collective. So take these tools, take this model as you will. So that's the AI recycle. Now, the way this applies to our class is you'll notice that we have 9 weeks, 3 modules per 3-week cycle. Each of these 3-week cycles is one of these phases. So we go through an activation period first. We'll start that today. The activation period is about really just exploring our consciousness. We learn about trance states. We learn about brainwave patterns. We learn about different ways to experience reality. We learn how to work with our awareness, with our imagination, with our creativity, and to do the things that we already do, but also trust ourselves more. We also connect with our guides just a bit in this first 3-week module, 3-week cycle. And then we also talk about astral boundaries, centering, more safe trance work practices. They're all fundamental and they're all important. And then we also move on to, after that, the second phase, the release phase. And that's where we really dive into, oh, excuse me. I guess I need to release that sneeze. It's funny timing. So we move into release, where we really dive into our inner world. We use symbolic, guided, higher self, lower self, imagery, energy, tools to go in and look at ourselves, look at our core beliefs, our core patterns, our cellular memory, our ego minds. We really look at those things so that we can become a clear channel, so that we can move into an expansion phase. And then once we've done that and we go through a little bit of integration work, we will move into the expansion phase. And that's when we actually do the trance work initiation. The actual Akashic trance work initiation exercise is the first exercise of the expansion phase. And that's when we take you through a very special process that is unique to our modality, where we introduce you to the Akashic records. And from there, we move on to look at different ways we can access the records. We look at our ancestral connections. We look at our light body, Merkaba. We look at how we can attune that using the chakra system. We'll look at the power of the heart center. We'll talk about that continually over and over again, but we really dive into that. And then also presence, how to be fully present with ourselves. And then the final lesson is about how to read and heal others. And you'll see that everything that you've done up until then actually progressively leads you up to that point where you can really tap into yourself in your own way and hold space for others, or to explore more on your own, depending on how you would like to use it. It's really up to you. Great. So let's see if there's a question here. Natalie's asking, would it make sense to be finishing up a big release now before we start our expansion? Absolutely. You know, it is a cyclical experience, right? So that's a good point. So that reminds me of how this works. it is cyclical, meaning that no matter how long you are in a given phase, if you're expanding, expanding, eventually another activation happens. And then you realize that everything that you thought you knew actually was only a small part of the puzzle, right? So you will always be in one point, at one point of it. Now, if you are in an expansion phase right now, you'll be able to take this material very well. But even if you are feeling like you're in a release point right now where you're purging, you're letting go, I know there's a retrograde going on. Personally, you know, I have some physical things happening that are release points. So we're always going to be at one point or the other. So it's an opportunity to observe within ourselves where we are. Ask yourself right now, you don't got to tell me. If you want to, you can. But where are you right now? Do you feel like you've just become aware of new things? You're trying to make sense of it? Do you feel like you are purging, like you're letting go of things? You'll have some physical symptoms around that, most likely. Or are you in an expansion point where you're just ready and eager and you have a lot of excessive energy, extra energy, not excessive, extra energy? So you'll always be somewhere along that line. And you could slip back and forth. You know, this is just a loose model. And again, if it doesn't even make sense to you, don't use it. But it's a completely great place to be, Natalie, if you are finishing up a release, if the release point has moved on into an expansion place, you have some extra energy. It's a great place to be because it allows you to embrace more fully this entire process. And if you're at the end of a release point, yeah, it's, Barbara's pointing out, going back and forth between release and expansion. You know, we're really oversimplifying here, honestly, because it does go back and forth. It can be kind of a roller coaster. You know, I would never say that I'm fully released. I would never say that I'm fully perfect. But as long as you've done the work, as long as you put the intention out there, then you'll absolutely find it. You know, you could go through 20 ARE cycles in one day. It doesn't have to be this whole long thing, right? This is just sort of like how the ARE cycle works. Honestly, if any of you are familiar with some of the more esoteric Buddhist philosophy, it's a very simplified version of the chain of causation we talk about in Buddhism, the conditional arising, where there's a whole bunch of processes the mind goes through as it accepts, as it perceives reality on all these different levels. So that's bit more complex and we've simplified it a bit, but we'll always be at some point in that cycle at any given time, even if we just go through it very briefly. And you know, an activation point can be something very simple, like, oh, I saw a squirrel. That's an activation point. I didn't know there was a squirrel right there. I have an awareness of there being a squirrel right there. And then maybe I'm like, oh, how do I feel about squirrels right now? Do squirrels make me afraid? Why would a squirrel make me afraid? Do I need that fear? Does it protect me? Oh, you know what? I don't need to be afraid of squirrels anymore. I've expanded, you know, so it can be that simple, really. Or, you know, when we really talk about it, we're talking about obviously more complex things, but it's kind of a general process the mind tends to follow. So, yeah. Great. Let me make sure I've got all the questions answered. And of course, if you do feel like you're stuck or you need help, it's a good opportunity to use your check-in. All right. So let's dive into one of the most complex things that we could possibly discuss, and we'll try to cover it here in this 10-minute discussion. So your brain is basically an antenna, a receiver. It receives frequencies and it projects frequencies. These frequencies can be measured by a device called an EEG, an electroencephalogram. You may already be familiar with some of these things. Most of us are. But let's talk a little bit about the different frequencies, the electromagnetic frequencies that your brain emits. If you are aware of things like solfeggio frequencies, sacred geometry, the nature of sound, you may notice there's a parallel between our brainwave frequencies and how sacred geometry works, the way the frequencies are aligned. So if you're interested in learning more about how those things relate, look at the reading, we have more information there. I'm not going to go too deep into how this kind of all relates to the profound structure of the universe, but the resources are there. There's a lot of information available out there about this. But for now, we'll just talk about how these relate to our trance work. So at any given time, you have a combination of many of these waves, these wave patterns going on in your brain. They're measurable, they're repeatable. You can induce them, you can create them in many different ways. We'll talk about that quite a bit. So most of the time, if you're awake, if you're active, if you're moving around, if you're engaging, if you're paying attention to your external environment, then you are at a level of beta consciousness. You have a lot of beta wave activity, these tight, somewhat erratic patterns that you see here. Beta waves are necessary for us to be able to move throughout the world. People that don't have enough beta activity tend to be very ungrounded. They have a hard time keeping track of events. They may forget what day it is. Something that's very common. If you have trouble with these things, if you feel scattered, if you feel distracted, if you feel confused a lot, then you may need to actually bring in more beta. There are a lot of ways to do that. We don't focus heavily on inducing beta states in this course because it's not trance work. It's more about healing your general experience if you need to bring in more beta activity. So if you need some recommendations on how to bring in more beta waves, we can absolutely help you with that. Reach out to us. There's a lot of things on YouTube, different binaural beats and isochronic tones and things like that that you can use to induce beta waves in your mind. What we primarily focus on are alpha, theta, and gamma states, and to a lesser extent, delta states. The alpha state is what we sometimes call the astral gateway. All of you go into alpha states all the time. Anytime that you kind of sit back and relax, and you begin to lightly meditate or just kind of zone out, daydream, that's an alpha state. Most people who are attracted to this work are natural alpha trancers. Maybe they call you a dreamer, a daydreamer, space cadet, whatever it might be. You're going into an alpha state. You're engaging your inner world. As soon as you start to do that, if you are relaxed about it, then you are in an alpha state. Now, there are different levels of alpha trance, depending on how deeply relaxed you are and how engaged you are. Bear in mind, you have combinations of these wave patterns. You're very seldom going to always be strictly at one particular frequency. If you look at an EEG, there's a whole bunch of lines there. You can actually buy an EEG now. You can get a Muse headband that will measure these patterns for you. So if you were interested in really seeing what your brain is doing, you can actually buy these, and there's actually biofeedback processes you can use to induce these states. But what we talk about are ways to induce these things naturally without anything like that. So the alpha state is where we begin to go into our inner space, our astral space. Now, it's a really great place to do most of our work. Engaged trance work like guiding people in journeys, channeling, doing readings, energy healings, things like that are most commonly going to be done in an alpha state. Now, the deeper state that we go into, which is sometimes called the trance work sweet spot, is the theta state. You go into theta states all the time. Whenever you're dreaming, you're in a theta state. You're fully engaged with your inner world. It's more of a traditional trance state where you may have some vague awareness of your external surroundings, but you kind of just don't care about it. It's kind of like when someone wakes you up at 4 in the morning, and sure, you can respond to them, but as soon as you finish the conversation, you go right back to your sleep state because you're in a theta state. You can be responsive there. You can communicate. You know, people can talk in their sleep. You can have a conversation with somebody in their sleep. And that's the magic of inducing trance states, inducing theta states. So what we want to do is access those deep theta states sometimes, not always, while we're awake. And that's the trick that we are trying to accomplish in trance work. We're trying to get into a theta state from an alpha state without going down into a full delta state. Delta states are when we are fully, deeply asleep, not dreaming, just resting. Our minds are at rest. Our bodies are at rest. It's a very healing place. And there is some entrainment and healing that can happen. In those states, I would say you probably benefit more from sound healing using crystal bowls and things like that than from vocal trance work, although I think there is also some benefit to vocal trance work from an entrainment and healing perspective. Most of the real entrainment, most of the real journeying happens in your theta state. So theta states are important. Delta states are important. They're all important. Let's talk a little bit about the gamma state. Now, the gamma state here, it's interesting because gamma states are our most relaxed brainwave pattern, but they're also a highly active pattern. Gamma states can be present no matter how physically active and awake we are because they are a cultivated state. Gamma states have been measured in people that have been meditating for many years, focusing on compassion, on kindness. Buddhist meditators who have been doing meditation, loving kindness meditation, have been shown to produce these gamma states at will. When we talk about cultivating heart-centered awareness, we're talking about cultivating gamma states. Interestingly enough, you can actually measure a very similar pattern of electromagnetic activity in the heart that you can measure in the brain. When the pattern, the electromagnetic pattern of the heart matches the pattern of the brain, you achieve a state that's called coherence. There's an organization called HeartMath, and we refer to them quite a bit in our work because they've been able to study these correlations. They have equipment that they can measure the frequency of the heart, compare it to the frequency of the brain, and when both of these magnets, essentially, your heart and your brain are each magnets, are at the same resonance, then you are in a state of coherence. That's what we want to do. We want to get into a coherent state before we go into a deeper trance work experience. We want to match the mind and the body. Not hard to cultivate these states. All we have to do is just access and activate our heart-centered awareness, which we will focus on continually. As important as grounding is, centering, heart centering, is as important. I want to talk a little bit about our differentiation between our different types of awareness, and we'll actually dive into this more in our second lesson here in a little bit. There are a lot of ways to conceptualize consciousness, a lot of cosmologies, models of the universe, so to speak. There are multiple dimensions, many ways to perceive awareness, other realms and awarenesses and dimensions of being that we can access. It can get very convoluted, very complicated, and you could spend your entire lifetime trying to pin down these different things. You can find a lot of dogma online about these different dimensions. It's not our place to tell you what's true. What we do know is that we can observe at least two types of experience that are both equally real and equally valid and equally important. Astral awareness and astral space, which is everything that is not physical. Physical space, physical awareness is predictable based on physical laws. Gravity, inertia, momentum, things like that. You always know that a ball that you drop is going to fall at a specific velocity, a specific rate. It's predictable, you know. Something that is one color is probably not going to change color the next time you see it, probably. Now, everything else that's not physical, again, is, within our very simplified modality, an astral experience. All of your thoughts, emotions, visions, your imagination, which we again call your astral awareness. All of these things are not quite so predictable, but they are governed by certain laws and principles. And that's a big part of what we are trying to explore and make sense of in this process. So sometimes it might seem like there are no predictable events that go on astrally. Maybe it seems random. Maybe it seems like you can't make any connection between two different things that are happening. The thing is that even if you have an astral ball, imagine a ball, you might drop it and maybe it'll turn into a butterfly. Maybe it'll dissolve away into colors. Maybe it just sits there. Maybe it's not a ball at all. There still are certain principles that determine what will happen. And that is largely about association, what you think about a ball. That's the fundamental astral law. Everything will find association. Everything is governed by symbolic association. We'll talk about that a little bit more here in a few moments. But for now, as we go into this next exercise, this first exercise, we'll talk about astral versus physical. You're in your astral space or in your physical space. So it's really about just embracing your imagination. What we call imagination is our imaging ability, your ability to imagine things, to create things. So we're going to explore that a little bit here now. So let's all take a few moments to get comfortable, take some breaths. And just sit with your thoughts. Sit with your feelings. Be present with whatever is going on right now. You'll have many things that are arising. Maybe you're feeling happy, sad, bored, distracted. Whatever you're feeling is okay. Maybe you're thinking about what you need to do later. Maybe you're wondering what's happening right now, someplace else where you're not. That's fine. Maybe you'll have physical distractions. That physical sensory information is also astral information entering from physical space into your astral awareness. You might already find yourself kind of drifting off. So take a breath and then bring our awareness just back to our physical space, to our physical senses. So all of you just went into an alpha trance. It's that simple. It's really that simple. Just going within. We'll be continually, as we do these exercises, going in and out of trance states. Originally, we used to just do a whole long, like 1 hour lecture, and then I would do about a half-hour guided journey. And that worked well enough, but I found that going in and out of these trance states continually shows us, first of all, how easy it is to go into a trance and how easily we can move in and out of these states and how accessible these states are for us. So does anyone have any feedback, any comments? How easy was it for you to just go within, to allow yourself to flow? Did it feel comfortable? Did it feel uncomfortable? Did you find yourself almost falling asleep? How did that feel for you? And if you're watching this as a recording, pay attention to what happens and then make some notes. Send it to us. We have an assessment. You have a journaling feature. And also email us. Let us know how these exercises work for you. Yeah, it is very simple. There's not much to it. So most of these exercises here are review, and we'll just build on these. But yeah, it's a lot of fun to just kind of sit back and relax. I think that a lot of times when we feel like we're meditating, we have to do something. We have to not think or try to do something with our thoughts. And we will do some of that. But just being able to go in and just tap in briefly and just be present with ourselves is a very nice, relaxing exercise to be able to do. So we're going to move forward now. We're going to go back into that state together and then be a little bit more intentional about what we do, just a bit more. So let's take a moment to breathe ourselves back to that state where you just were. You can always have your eyes opened or closed for these, but you may find it's easiest with your eyes closed. And now, when you feel comfortable, just imagine something, create something. It can be anything. It can be something that exists in physical reality or something purely astral, something purely imaginary. Maybe it's something very complex, something simple. Maybe it shifts, changes form. It's fine too. Maybe you find your thoughts and feelings drifting away from this thing you've made, and that's fine. Just lovingly and gently bring your awareness back to that thing you've allowed into your inner space, your astral space. And hold on to that object. Remember it. You have the ability to remember things, to hold things in your memory. Now, bring your awareness back to your physical space. And I would love to hear from all of you, from any of you, what came up? What did you imagine? You don't have to share, but I would love to hear. This is one of the more fun things that we do. It's interesting how it will begin to shift and change. It doesn't have to be a static thing. We're connecting to an idea. We're connecting to a concept more than a thing, more than an object. Maya sharing that she had a stick of fairy floss that grew, expanded, rised up into the air, space. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. Those expansive, energetic movements are so visible, so seeable within that space. Stara saw a little handheld Merkaba. I don't know if you all know what the Merkaba is yet, but it's like a little 10-pointed multidimensional star spinning like mad and showing her things about how it gives and receives energy with its spinning. Natalie mentions that she's been practicing this lesson and always sees the same object. That is very interesting for sure. There is some real guidance to be had there. That's the kind of thing that I encourage you maybe drawing or writing about, because there's a lot of important information when the same objects, the same symbols keep coming up in your mind. crown chakra, it's not unusual to have physical experiences, tingling in different areas, different energy centers. It's very common. It's an activation point. Barbara sharing that she saw a large tree with many branches that twist and turn in multiple directions. Trees are great, natural things. Natural, growing, moving objects are so powerful, so beautiful. Latasha saw Metatron's cube spinning in the air. Yeah, if you can connect with sacred geometrical forms, then you are there. You are getting into it because, as we'll talk about, there are representational forms and non-representational forms, higher geometric forms. So even if you're only experiencing like light and color and sound and things like that, that's good. There are a lot of things to be experienced in those dimensions as well. Wonderful. And feel free to share as we go. Let's go ahead and move on to our next lesson. And feel free to jump in and let us know. So let's dive in a little bit and talk some more about what we're doing in that space and how it works and how we can work with our imagination. So let's talk a little bit about the dimensions of awareness. I know we said that astral and physical, but I want to mention some things just briefly so that we can contextualize them. So first of all, understand that the dimension, the level of awareness that you're in is determined by your focus. Where you are focused determines your vibration, your frequency, right? So most of us tend to be focused, roughly speaking, in one of three places. And then there are many more levels beyond that, and that's why we've simplified things. But most of us tend to be either at a third dimensional, fourth dimensional, or fifth dimensional level of awareness at any given time. And we'll move between these different levels of awareness at any given time, right? So our three-dimensional awareness is when we're fully preoccupied with our physical experience. We also will equate this later on with the lower self awareness, the lower self experience. We're tapped into our physical senses, our physical experience, our physical awareness. We're concerned about survival and other people and things like that. Our fourth dimensional experience is the astral experience, right? Our 4D space is where we connect with our minds, with our spirits. There are some beings that only exist four-dimensionally. We call all of these beings very loosely guides. Whether or not these beings exist outside of ourselves, or if they're just projections, constructs of our minds, that's up to you to decide. I don't particularly have an opinion on whether or not your guides are projections or if they are actual external entities that other beings can interact with too. That is your particular belief system that I encourage you to explore. So, however you encounter other energies, other beings, other consciousnesses on a 4D level, it's important to have boundaries in place. Just like we have 3D boundaries, we have 4D boundaries. Now, the best way to have an effective 4D boundary is to actually move into 5D awareness, which we equate with the heart center, also with gamma states. When we're focused on the heart center, we move outside of time and space completely. We can connect with any being in the universe astrally very easily. So, as you all know, there are many more levels of awareness we can access. So rather than get caught up in all those things, let's just think about we have physical and astral awareness, and then we have our heart-centered awareness. And no matter where we are, whether or not we are engaging physically or astrally, we should always be attuned to our 5D awareness as much as possible. Now, I do think that it is not possible to always be in a gamma state. I think if you are alive, if you're physically incarnate, you are going to be more focused on one of these lower vibrations, so to speak. at any given time, and that's normal. The center, when we bring ourselves back to center, when we activate our fifth dimensional awareness, our heart-centered awareness, then we can exist at these lower frequencies, so to speak, because of the fact that we're not really going anywhere. That's the important thing to know. You're not going anywhere when you move between dimensions. All you're doing is you're opening up one of your senses. You have many senses. It's sometimes said, and we talk about this in the lesson, that you have 360 senses. You have so many senses. So whether you're 3D, 4D, 8D, 10D, at your root chakra, at your heart chakra, wherever you are, you're there because you're focusing your awareness there. You're opening your senses. You're opening that particular sense and focusing on it. So that's the dimension that you're in, so to speak, and that is where your reality will go because that's where you're focused. So whatever you choose to believe, whatever your specific belief system implies or tells you, the important thing is to understand that wherever you are focused is where you will go. And that is always true. Now, I want to talk a little bit about, and we already discussed this a bit, our ARE cycle, activation, release, and expansion, versus the ascension modalities. The idea of ascension is great, but what happens when you get too caught up in an ascension modality, you can get discouraged because it can feel like, you know, I already had my awakening. I already ascended. Why am I going through the same stuff? Why do I feel like I have to go through the same stuff over and over and over again? Well, it's because it is cyclical, as we mentioned. Maybe we will ascend, maybe we'll awaken to a higher dimension for a while, but because we are all still within the same human experience and those senses, those lower dimensional senses that you still have are still there, they're still active, that information is still happening. You are still in that place. As long as you are alive, as long as you are incarnate, you will most likely go back to a point of activation and release and expansion again. It's natural. It's part of the entire cycle of being. So, that said, we have to choose mindfully where we go once we're within. This is what we do in Akashic trance work. You've probably already seen that going into a trance state in and of itself is not that hard. You do it all the time anyway. What you do there is what matters. So in the last exercise, we had you work with your imagination, with your imaging ability, your ability to virtually interface with your astral space. We try to get away from using the word imagination too much because there is an implication that it's not real, that it's not valid, that it's just your imagination. While it is possible, absolutely, to make up, to confabulate, to create something that's not true, but this is what we always do. Your entire reality is, in a very real sense, made up. If you were to perceive reality as it really is, then you would just be sitting in this field of noise, right? We have to interpret our reality. And the way that we interpret reality is by projecting a framework of understanding. We imagine everything around us based on the information we're receiving. We create it continually, and we co-create it together by agreeing on what a concept is. You and I agree that a chair is a chair in physical space, so we have a place to sit. That's how it works. Now, in astral space, as we've mentioned, there are different laws that apply. A chair is not just a chair. A chair is everything that you feel about chairs, everything you believe about chairs, every chair you've ever seen. Maybe you have stories about chairs. Maybe you fell off of a chair or you danced on a chair, right? It's going to have all of these kind of different associations. An association, again, is what the mind is made of. So let's talk about this. Is a very great question, Barbara. What could block you from being able to effectively visualize? First of all, let's let go of the need to visualize. Visualization is not that important. What's important is how we feel about an astral object. So when you see something, when you experience something in astral space, the form of it, the structure of it that you see has very little to do with its true nature. How you feel about it is what its true nature is. It's more important to tap into how we feel about something in astral space. That is what will give us the information. The form of an object in astral space matters less than how we feel about it. If we are not visualizing, which some people are not strong visualizers, some people just don't do it. I personally, to be quite honest, am not as strong a visualizer as I would like to be, but I am clairsentient, meaning that knowledge just kind of flows through me. Embrace your own version of this. Embrace your own inner experience. Don't get stuck on not being able to visualize. It'll happen when it happens, if it happens. If not, your gifts may lie elsewhere. I will say that if you really want to work on your visualization, that it's about third eye activation. So you want to focus on your third eye. Focus on that point right there on your pineal gland, and make sure you're coming from a centered place, right? We're going to the center first, the heart center, and then activating the third eye. And that is where our deeper visual experiences have. But for now, just whatever happens, happens. Whatever you experience is what you experience. So let's talk a little bit about this process of imaging, of creating something in our astral space. Now, we might say that when we build an astral space, it is made out of associations, made out of feelings, how we associate things. We can create anything, but when we just create a small something and then let our minds fill in the details, fill in the gaps around it, that's how we begin to experience the Akashic process, because we are allowing the mind, the subconscious mind, which, as we'll see, is actually related to the heart center and to the limbic system that encodes memory and communication. That's where the magic happens. So we sometimes look at it like creating a bucket. I can imagine a bucket very easily. You can imagine a bucket. Maybe that bucket is made out of wood. Maybe it's made out of plastic or metal. It could be anything. Again, maybe you have some associations around buckets. Maybe you don't like buckets. Maybe you do. Whatever it is, the bucket is there. The concept of bucket has come in. Now, you also know that a bucket usually contains something. Usually there will be something inside. You can choose whether or not you want to put something in that bucket, or if you want to be able to receive the contents of that bucket, of that container, from your deeper subconscious. That is essentially what an Akashic record reading is. Dipping an astral bucket into the Akashic river and seeing what comes up. Create the bucket, don't create the contents, look inside, and whatever's there, no matter how weird it is, no matter how abstract or strange it is, that is the information that you have asked for. We'll talk more about how to interpret that information, but for now, we're just going to allow ourselves to receive it. And again, let go of the need to see. We all experience in different ways. It's more about just letting the imagination, letting the energy flow. And if it's all light and color and sound and vibration, that's completely fine. I mean, that's what reality is. And if objects, shapes, people, symbols, ideas come through, that's fine too. But all we're doing is just following a pattern. The exercise that we're going to do will expand on that pattern a bit, and then we'll decide how we want to direct our associations. So you want to take a moment to get comfortable. We can close our eyes if we want to. If you can, remember what you brought into your astral space last time. What you will notice as you bring that object back in. And if a different object comes, that's fine too. So you bring in that astral object, other ideas, feelings, memories, associations begin to flow. Follow that flow, but also direct it. You can go many different ways. Most likely, the things that arise will be good or bad or neutral. Your mind will know immediately if it's good or bad or neutral. Choose now to focus on the good things that arise, the thoughts, feelings, ideas, objects, memories, and those things that are bad or just neutral. Just let them be. Let them flow and fade away naturally as they move through your mind. Just keep letting things flow. And remember to redirect towards the good things that arise. Keep going until you arrive at one final thing. It might be very different from where you started. You might not even remember where you started, and that's fine. You've arrived at one of your deepest intentions, deepest points of guidance. Hold on to it, this thing, this memory, idea, feeling, shape, whatever it is. Hold on to it and remember it. When you're ready, bring your senses back to your physical space. If you would like to share with us where this pathway led you, I'd love to hear it. This is one of the most fundamental trance induction practices that I do with people when I work with them one-on-one. I take them through an association process, and it really helps to see how we get from one point to another. It can be even interesting to count how many points in the chain of associations, so to speak, we get to before something really interesting arises. So whatever feelings come up, whatever thoughts come up, that's what was supposed to arise. Even if it's a feeling of frustration, that in itself is a point.
Are you asking what I mean by wowie? Sounds like you had a pretty powerful experience too.
Yeah, so I had a session with Astara 2 days ago, was it? Um, where Astara saw my well and it was really depleted. And so when my well got filled up, the fish, which are like my ideas and my purpose and everything in life, like they were really like starved of water and all that. So I was asking Astara if I can fill my well when I'm in the astral space. And I just did that. And I was filling it up and I could see my fish and I was like feeding the fish and I was putting a little bit of dirt and sand and plants at the bottom. And then the well was like a big expansive sea, not a sea or a lake, but just like a bigger well. It was just massive and there was so much space. And the fish were like all spread out. They were healthy and happy and yeah, it was amazing.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's really what we're doing. I mean, that's the value of this. So you are already aware of how powerful your mind is and how you can really go in and intentionally create, intentionally interface and heal. So powerful.
So good. What a relief.
Yeah, yeah. So the next exercise that I would like to try with you all is a bit different. As we've discussed, you can imagine anything, right? You also have an astral echo, so to speak, of everything that exists in your physical space, everything that exists in all of physical space. There is an astral version of it. Now, when you experience the astral version, sometimes I call it the astral map, things will look different. It's kind of like when you're dreaming about a place you've been many times. Well, that place looks very different in your dreams, right? That's because it's the astral version of that place that you are experiencing. Maybe it's your personal astral version, maybe it's a collective version. It's up to you to decide, but you are seeing an astral analog, an astral echo. So you are able to tap into that at any given time. There is a lot of information that you can receive by tapping into that collective energy from all of the different things and people and creatures that are around you in astral space. This is a way that we can connect into the Ubuntu principle, to our collective consciousness, because we see that we have an astral experience that we share with all beings, even the objects around us. We may even see energies, shapes, things like that, that aren't there in our physical space. So before we start this exercise, I'd like each of you to take about 30 seconds to really just kind of look around the space that you're in. And just make note of the details, the objects that are there. Just kind of look around behind you, look down, you look down at yourself. Especially making note if you have any other people or plants or animals in the room. Give them an extra kind of glance. Great. And now let's all close our eyes and remember what you just saw. It's okay if it doesn't seem to quite hold shape in your mind. Take some deep breaths and just hold on to that memory of things. You may want to find just a few objects to focus on. Or maybe you can easily recall everything. Take some deep breaths. You feel your awareness expanding now, expanding all the objects in your room, the room that you're in. Maybe there are living creatures there of some kind. If so, I invite you to send them love and compassion. You may notice that how they look to you, how they feel to you in this astral space is a bit different from what you are used to. There is information here for you. Now, take a deep breath and extend your awareness to the building you are in. There are many more objects in that place. Many more people, possibly, other creatures. If so, what do you think they are doing right now? Send them any love and compassion that you can spare. And now, extend your awareness to your entire town or city. Think about all the people who are out there right now, bustling around. Perhaps they're resting. It depends what time of day it is for you. What are they doing? What are the animals doing? What kind of animals and plants are in your city? What about the people in charge of your city? How do you think they feel right now? Take a deep breath and expand your awareness to your entire country. So many people, so many plants, so many beautiful natural places. Many different people here, but you all share something in common. A common language, common culture, some common values. There may be people here within your country who do not get along. I invite you now to send them love and compassion. And even the leaders of your country, what do you think they might be doing right now? How do you think they feel? Send them to love and compassion. And now, take a deep breath and expand your awareness to your entire continent, every nation that is close to yours. So many more people, more energies. Even if you're down under, maybe you can call for New Zealand, connecting to the other nations that are close to you. All of these people are also related, but different. Still one. Send all of these beings love and compassion. And now, expand your awareness to the entire planet. You are now one with Gaia, your mother. all things that move and crawl and breathe on the thin surface of her body. All of the moving, flowing waters and rock flows beneath her surface. Your deep beating heart that produces a massive magnetic field that holds everything together. It's just like the magnetic field at your own heart. You can feel warm on your back, the sun, your father. You can feel your sister, the moon, and the other planets keeping you company. And now, take a deep breath and expand your awareness to the entire solar system. You are now the sun, and all of your children, all of your planets, asteroids, comets, all part of you, part of your larger body. And around you are many other stars, infinite stars, as far as you can see. And you feel so serene and balanced, connected with all the energies within you. Now, take a deep breath and expand your awareness to the entire galaxy. At your very center is a massive gravity well. It's where your heart is. It's a powerful magnet that everything that comes close is drawn to it. And it is this magnetism that creates the multitudes of life and form that exist within you. Send deep love and compassion to all of these beings. And now, take a deep breath. Just for a moment, you are the entire universe, all light, all darkness, all things that are and will be and have been. And now, bring your awareness back down to your galactic self, to the galaxy that you are. And bring your awareness back down to our solar system. Bring your awareness back down to our planet, Gaia, Earth. Bring your awareness back down to your continent, back down to your nation, back down to your city, back down to your building, back down to the room you're in, back down to your own body. And here you may be able to astrally observe your body. You may see light patterns. Make note of any of these patterns that seem important to you. As you gradually begin to bring your awareness fully back to your physical space, to this moment. And opening your eyes when you're ready. You may want to take a couple of very deep breaths. I think Astara got emotional. And that's good. I don't always incorporate the love energy part, but I think it's a good thing. It's kind of a version of meditation. Sometimes people do experience a little bit of disorientation when doing this exercise. So if you are feeling that, just take some extra breaths. Remember that you are a physical being here. You're just extending your awareness to a larger version of yourself, because Stara says was very deep for her. She did get emotional when experiencing as father-son. Star consciousnesses are very powerful. If you can experience as a star consciousness, then there are some really amazing things you can do. I've actually experienced as clusters of stars. You can really take this to any level that you want to. You can also project your consciousness and live as another star if you want to. There's so much you can do with this projection of awareness. This is kind of an advanced exercise, so we'll be pulling back from some of this. Natalie connected with Chiron, the comet. It's very powerful part of our body, the wounded healer. Yeah. Anything that comes through, especially as you expand your consciousness, we actually have an exercise that we do sometimes where we go through each of the planets and experience as them. And that can be a lot of fun, especially if you know astrology very well. So, yeah. Barbara, saw your body as glowing light. Yeah, you can really tap into that light body, into that light field, and do some really amazing healing work. You can also tap into the light bodies of others through this. You can connect with other people and animals astrally through this practice. So a lot of what we're doing is what they sometimes call remote viewing. We're projecting our awareness. We're not projecting our spirit. We're just opening ourselves, opening our higher senses. I do recommend that if you are going to read the light bodies of others, to get permission from them first. That is kind of a ethical consideration, and it will help you then to open up to you more. But yeah, absolutely, it can be done. It's a lot of the energy healing work that we do. Maya, you saw the shark in the ocean. Another thing that we can actually do is project our awareness into animal forms, and that's an advanced practice too. But you can actually experience Maya as that animal. That's actually shamanic shapeshifting, and that's something that we cover in some of our advanced classes. But yeah, there's so much you can do when you learn how to just kind of move and project your awareness in different forms and structures. So yeah, wonderful. So I know we are coming close to our time. It's a bit over, but that's fine. Move on to lesson 3. Yeah, animals are really great to tap into because your dog will always give you astral permission, I think. I don't think they'll ever have a problem with that. They love us so much. Speaking of dogs, I have this cozy dog here, right? Funny that you would mention that. Not a husky, but just a nice little cozy little pup here. And that's really what I want you all to feel after you do your trance work sessions, right? Even if it's a difficult one, we want to feel safe and cozy and protected and supported. And that's why our safe trance work practices are so important. Now, some of these things you should know how to do on your own, hopefully, but most of these things are practices that we will cultivate throughout this course. So breath work is something most of you are probably very familiar with already. If you've done any kind of meditation, yoga, martial arts, anything like that, you're familiar with how the breath changes our consciousness. We actually will have a lesson on how you can induce trance states with the breath. But even just observing the breath can be very powerful, very relaxing. That is a practice that is sometimes called Vipassana meditation, where we observe the breath and the other sensory experiences. So following the breath is a very important part of safety, right? I tell people when I induce trance states that your breath is always your friend. No matter what's happening, just take 4 deep breaths and return to your heart center and everything is fine. Grounding we've talked about. We'll actually do another grounding exercise to wrap things up. Grounding, remember you're a physical being. Anything can be grounding, any physical thing that you do, or even just following the breath again is very grounding. These things all are interchangeable. They all build on one another. Emotional and thought management are a big part of what we are addressing in this course. And we have to be responsible for our thoughts and emotions as we do this work so that we can move through these practices with integrity, with safety. If you're having trouble with these things, if you feel like the practices that we're teaching are not adequately addressing your emotional mental state, contact us. Let us know. We're here to support you. Self-care is also very important. Take care of yourself. Love yourself, especially for these 9 weeks, as if you were your own child. Eat well, drink lots of water. I'm not going to say that you have to avoid intoxicants completely, but I will say that alcohol does specifically tend to diminish our ability to visualize. If you are a cannabis user, I recommend not partaking too heavily before trance work sessions or before bed, because dreaming can be very important to the process. And then just doing the things that, you know, make you feel good, make you feel happy, make you feel like you love yourself, right? Even just sitting back and watching a movie, indulging, there's nothing wrong with indulging in things. Just, you know, we want to do it with moderation. Whatever self-care looks like to you, do it times 10 during this process. Reward yourself. You want to reward yourself for going in and doing these things. Boundaries, energetic, interpersonal, emotional boundaries are a big thing that we will talk about continually through this course. We will more specifically talk about astral boundaries, but hopefully wherever you live, you have the space to take care of yourself. You have the space to tend to your own needs throughout these courses. Yes, Diana, feel free to message me afterwards and we can talk about these things. So we'll basically be going into another exercise here, but briefly I want to just talk about support system. Use your support system. If you don't have people in your life that you can go to, that you can talk about, then reach out to us. Reach out to myself. Reach out to Astara. Let us know how we can help you. Your support system is very, very important in this process. Remember, you also have an astral support system. You have guides who are there to help you. You are not alone. We are here to support you. We expect that you will have challenges through this process. If you don't, we're probably not doing our job. We want to challenge you. We want to help you push your comfort zone. And within that, we want to be gentle with ourselves. We want to make sure that we are addressing our needs and spending time with people that nourish us, that make us feel good. Even if it's just pets, even if it's just our astral guides. Engage that support system. So, great. Let's go ahead and just take some breaths. That's all we're going to do for a couple of minutes, is just follow the breath. You can have your eyes opened or closed. It's up to you. So we're just watching the breath. Just following it. Your breath has a lot of information for you. What is your breath telling you about your health, about your current emotional and mental state? Are you feeling agitated? Are you feeling relaxed? Whatever you might be feeling right now, It's okay. Just keep following the breath for another minute. And gently bring yourself back to your physical awareness. So Diana is sharing a few things with me. Diana, you did send those to me privately, so I don't know if that's what you wanted to do at all. But if you're experiencing challenges, if you're experiencing difficulties, remember we're just starting now. So again, it's expected that you will have these things. If you're feeling anything uncomfortable, unpleasant, you're accessing what is there within your consciousness, within your psyche. So those are the things that are inviting you to deal with. Yeah, even agitation, hopelessness, tearfulness, anxiety, frustration, anger, all those things, you know. I mean, if that's what you're experiencing, then those are the things that are inviting you to release. I wouldn't expect you to release them now. We're not going there yet. So for now, we're just going to hold space for those things, allow those things to be present, especially physical sensations too. Sometimes people have physical discomfort that arises. It's completely normal. It's natural. If you are able to just acknowledge those things, to name those things, there's a lot of power in just naming those feelings, because sometimes naming our emotions, naming our feelings, naming our experiences is the hardest thing. So if we can just call those things out, this is what I'm feeling, that's an invitation to work on those things, an invitation to be present with those things, and to, when it's time, release them. So there's no wrong way to do these exercises. If this is what the breath tells us, then this is what the breath can help us heal. So we should go ahead and wrap up, but I want to first take us through another quick grounding exercise. So let's take a moment to just breathe again. And just bring our awareness to our physical bodies. And this time, just make note of any physical sensations you may be having, of any discomfort or dis-ease you may be experiencing. And just send those feelings love, compassion, understanding, gratitude. And once you've done that, send your awareness down into the earth, to the center of the earth, to that beating heart of your mother, of Gaia, and feel her warmth, and feel all of the other living things, growing things, the moving things, the flowing things, all around you. You feel a deep sense of gratitude that the earth is there to support you, that she connects you to your deeper self through this connection with your physical body. You feel that grounding, connective energy all around you. Your senses are so alive, so active. All of your senses so present in this moment, so aware, so energized. And you know that no matter what arises, no matter what challenges you must face, you are not alone, and that you will move through those challenges, release them, and expand. So, let's take some time to come back to our physical space once more. And we should get wrapping up, but I do want to allow a couple of minutes if anyone has anything they would like to share. Remember, your resistance points are your guide. Hold space for them. We all have them. We all will have them. You can expect to have them. We are just opening up some space to listen to ourselves. That's what we'll be doing. Listening, yes. But for now, for these next couple weeks, I'm just going to play a little bit. We're going to play with our imagination, with our thoughts, with our feelings. And we'll talk about how we can get into deeper states where we're more relaxed as well. And then we'll talk about how we can set boundaries with these feelings. Barbara is commenting that she was able to release some tension in shoulders and neck. Yeah, even just the relaxing part of it. Sometimes we just don't realize where we're holding tension. For me, I always hold a lot of tension right in my neck, my lower back, and my legs. So if I just go in and kind of intentionally move my energy through my body, aligning, centering, then it's almost like getting an astral massage, so to speak, right? We're just kind of doing a tension release. Minded some healing with the earth, letting the sunlight. Yeah, I saw that sunlight coming in. I was wondering how that would affect your experience. Coming through your third eye too. Yeah, that's great. Clearing out some mind clutter. Beautiful. I think of the eye of Ra. So I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank you all for being present and sharing your energy. I think that we will use this particular recording for our main workshop recording on the portal, and we'll have that up by tomorrow. So if you want to rewatch it, you can. Let us know how the material is working for you. Go through the modules, send us assessments if you want to, do journaling if you want to. We're here for you. We love you all. Yeah, it's Barbara. So grateful for all of you for being present. Let us know how we can help you. Reach out. Until next time, give us blessings.